Hi, I'm Kristen and welcome to Code Xena. Initially, I started this channel in order to help some students from the boot camp that I went to, but now I'd like to expand it to help other people. Now, I am a female software engineer who's been in this field about 4 years now. I'm going to be talking about things that I've run into that might be helpful for you to know. I have been interviewing and I got a problem that was a reduce. And as a JavaScript engineer, a reduce is an array method that you might end up using sometimes. You want to return something that is not an array from an array. Like if you have an array and you need an object back, you need a number back, you need a string back, reach for that reduce. I hadn't used one in quite a while when I went and did my coding assessment. So practice it more than once every 2 years. My first technical problem in this interview, and I solved it with a for each. Now for each doesn't return anything, so I had the value I wanted outside of the for each, and I did get the right answer. And he said, there's another way. Have you ever used a reduce? So yeah, I rewrote it as a reduce. It returned the same thing. It was exactly the same. But then a couple of problems later, and my brain froze, and it just sort of inside it was a little man on fire running around in a circle, and I couldn't solve it. So I have a more complex reduce example that I tooled in order to practice, and I thought I would share it with you in case it's helpful. So let's give it a shot. Okay, so let's pretend that this is our live coding challenge. Looking at our data set here, we have an array called challenges full of objects. Each object has a key of name and a key of queens. You can see that queens is actually its own array of drag queen names. So we want to return an object with queen as the key, and the value is an array of challenge names. And I've got a kind of a written out example there of what that'll look like. It'll have a key of Trixie, and she'll have an array of singing and reading, and then it'll go on for each queen. Now, at the start of a challenge, what I actually like to do is pseudocode, and in order to save a little time, I'm going to just paste my pseudocoding in, and then work under each line of pseudocode to turn it into actual code. This will be my roadmap for the challenge. So the first thing I want to do is reduce over the challenges array. I'm actually going to copy paste the name of challenges because I sometimes spell things wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that. And we're going to reduce over it. If I can spell reduce, hang on. There we go. Let's go ahead and give that a return before I forget. So we're returning something from our function. All right, let's step out the reduce here. So the first thing we want to put in is a callback function. That's pretty normal. You would do that in a map or a for each as well. But I'll show you what the syntax difference is. So we'll open that up, and in our parameters, we're going to say our current value is challenge singular because we're iterating over the challenges array. So let's stick that in there. And because this is a reduce, we're also going to need something called an accumulator. I always just keep it simple and name it ACC. If you have a better naming convention, use it. And then right down here we can pass in an initial value, and my initial value for my accumulator is going to be an empty object. And then before I forget, I'm going to actually want to go and say return accumulator. So let's grab our next line of pseudocode. For each challenge, push in the queen as the key on the accumulated object. All right, so the reason I said for each there is because we have another array. There's an array here. So this array is in every challenge at the queen's key. So that's how we're going to for each over this. So challenge dot queens, and then we're going to use the for each method. Let's stub this out. Again, we've got a callback function. And we're gonna say for each queen, that's a good naming convention for that. For each queen, we would like to console log queen so that we can just see for a second that it is what we think it is. It should just be the name of each queen as it goes through the array in every challenge, and that's exactly what it is. But we can see here that there are some repeats in the names, and that will actually be handled in my next line of code. I said add conditional logic to avoid repeats. So I'm going to take out this console log, then we can grab that line of code, just following my roadmap here. Okay, so we're going to put in an if conditional. You could probably do this more than one way. I'm going to do an if conditional here. And spacing's a little funky, but that's okay. So I'm going to use a bang operator for no, and I'm going to check the accumulator, and we're going to use bracket notation because the name of the queen will change dynamically. So it'll be different each time. Sometimes it'll be Trixie, sometimes it'll be Katya. So if it's not there, what we actually want to do is create it. So that's all those two lines are saying. And we're going to initialize it with a value of an empty array. And after our if is where we're going to want to manipulate that array. We're going to push in the queen's challenges into the accumulated object as our value. So we already know what the key is. We can access it the same way. It's that accumulator bracket notation queen, because like I said, that changes every time. And I'm going to use the push method here because our array is empty, and I'm okay with using a modifier like push. It's okay. You can do it a different way, but I'm just going to use a push here. And so that'll be the challenge dot name. All right. And clean up a little spacing, though it's probably still not perfect. Oh well, let's give it a run. And we have an error. Challenge is not defined. This is why I was copy pasting challenge before. Even though it's my own data set, I still spell things wrong sometimes. It happens. We just gotta follow the errors. So we changed it, and now it's not showing anything because Repl doesn't actually print your return unless you're more explicit. So I'm going to give this an explicit variable called result. I'm going to return result so that I can also console log result. So above this, again, I'm going to use a console log with two arguments. The first argument being a string. So I know what I'm console logging. That's helpful if you're console logging more than one thing. Give yourself a little trail of breadcrumbs there. And perfect. We got back exactly the result we wanted, an object with a key of names and a value of the names of each of their activities. We did it. All right, and that was our reduced practice. I hope to be making many more videos like this. So please subscribe, hit that alert button, and I will see you next time. Thanks, bye. My God, that's the one.